So, good morning everyone. My name is Baquir from BSIT 21 and this is my presentation about classes. So the first type we're going to tackle about the four types of methods. So the first method is a method without arguments and without return value. So this is going to be its syntax. So first we put here the access modifier which I just set to public. And then we have here the data type or the method's data type, which is void, and then the method identifier, which is method one. And then in the method body, I'm just going to print out that this is a method without arguments and without return value. For the second method, it's going to be a method with arguments but without a return value. So the syntax is pretty much the same, but the only difference is that there is now a argument. So we have here a parameter that takes in a string data type, which is an argument. So I'm gonna pass here the value of this. I'm gonna pass this string over here in the comment, and then on the body, it's just going to print out that argument which was passed in here. Okay, for the next type, or for the third type of method is a method with both arguments and with return values. So one of the first difference here is the data type. So as you can see here, I'm no longer using the void data type. Whenever we make a method that has a return value, we have to match the method's data type to whatever data type we're going to be returning. So in this case, I'm going to return the argument, which is a string. So I'm going to return a string. That's why we use a string data type here. And then lastly, for method 4 is a method without arguments but with a return value. So as you can see here, there are no parameters here since we're not going to be using an argument. And then for our return value, it's going to be this string literal here. So we're going to be again using a string data type for our method because the data type that we're going to be returning is a string. So these are the syntax for calling the four types of methods. So we're just instantiating the method types. I'm just going to call it method here. And then we're going to call the method one, which is the method without arguments and without return value. So I'm just calling it like this. Then for the second method, I'm going to pass an argument. So I'm just going to pass this is a method with arguments and without return value. And then if you can remember from earlier, that's just going to print this one. So as you can see here, it's just printing it here. So for our method 3 here, I'm just going to, we're using the system out print line here since we're going to return a value. So what we're going to return here is whatever we passed. So we passed the argument, which is this is a method with arguments and with return value. So this is the argument. It's a string. And then since in this case, that's also what we're going to return. So after we pass that, we're just going to return it again. So we can see here. So over here, it's just going to return whatever we passed here. So it's going to print this string in this case, in our method 3. Then lastly, for method 4, we're just going to print again, since we're returning a value, we're going to print whatever it is returned. So over here, as you can see, we're going to return this is a method without arguments and with return value. So for the next slide is the syntax for creating a class. So this is going to be my class, which is called the person. This is the class identifier. Over here is again the access modifier. I'm just gonna set it to public, which just means that it can be used, or this class can be called from outside this file. Over here, I'm just gonna put static so that I can call this class. And then here is the class keyword for creating a class. And then over here, I just put the attributes of the class, which is called person. So I have here the person's name, their age, and then gender, and then their respective data types. For the next slide is the syntax for constructor. So over here, I have a constructor for the same class from earlier, which is person. So for creating a constructor, you just put the access modifier, in this case public. It should be always public so that it can be accessed from outside the class. And then the name should be the same as the name of your class. So person with capital P. And then it's going to have the parameters of the attributes that you're going to be using. And then here for the body, we're just going to assign whatever we passed in the parameters into the attributes of this class, which is person. So we're just going to use this keyword. So this dot name. So this just refers um, to the object or to the attribute called name inside of this class, which are these three. Then we're gonna equal that to the whatever we pass over here. Then lastly, here is the syntax for object. So this is the object that we created. This is the instantiation of the class person. So the first thing that we should type is the name of that class. So person, and then the identifier or what we want to call that specific object or instance. So in this case, I'm just gonna call it person1 equals, and then the keyword new, which means that we're going to create a new instance of this person class. And then we're gonna call the person constructor method. So person, and then we're going to include as parameters or as arguments the values that we're going to put in the attributes. Then over here below we just have I'm just printing out each attributes of that object. For the last slide, this is what the overall syntax looks like. So this is the person, the class person that we created. And then in there we have the attributes of that class person. Then we have one method, which is the constructor method for that class. And then in our public static void main is our instantiation or one instance of our person, which we just called person1. And then we're gonna print out the values that we put in as attributes.